A brutal new audit questions the spending and the judgment of Caring for Denver, the foundation that spends almost $50 million in taxpayer dollars each year on mental health and substance use issues. Denver's auditor says Caring for Denver's careless approach to spending harms the entire city's reputation with taxpayers.
I would say the common thread is there's a resistance to accountability and transparency.
Denver Auditor Timothy O'Brien supports Caring for Denver's work on mental health and substance abuse, but not how they're doing it, as they spend almost $50 million a year in tax money approved by voters in 2018.
I mean, those are all good causes. I mean, I know I voted for this when it was on the ballot.
Would you vote for it again?
I would like to see some changes in the contract.
His audit identified problematic grantees receiving funds, an inability to verify whether programs are effective, and unallowed alcohol and meal expenses, close to 600 meals and $3,100 spent on alcohol in 3 years. Incomplete and improperly evaluated grant applications, grants that didn't align with what taxpayers agreed to fund, and issues with conflict of interest forms. 15 recommendations in an audit. Is that a lot?
It's a lot. Probably the more significant thing is that they rejected 7 of the 15.
Do you see that a lot?
No.
Lorez Meinhold runs Caring for Denver. She says they've tightened up their documentation and they do good work.
Mental health and substance misuse is a big issue. We need to make sure that everybody can access the care that they need.
The audit doesn't challenge your intentions. It doesn't even challenge your impact. The audit says that you have wasteful and sloppy practices that harm taxpayers' faith in the whole of government in Denver.
And I would disagree with that as well. So we had financial policies in place. All of the expenses fell within that.
Do you have any regret of spending $3,000 on alcohol?
Again, I don't know if regret is the right word. I regret that this may have led to people not trust the city. We're going to change our policy.
You would recognize that the taxpayers didn't approve this to fund your lifestyle or your socialization.
What the taxpayers saw in the ballot initiative was 5% for admin expenses. They saw a requirement to meet with community, talk to community, to inform the use of our funds.
I mean, they're in the business, right, of meeting people and forming relationships and creating partnerships. Doesn't that require a little social lubrication?
I have responsibilities to meet people in the community also. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to buy me a drink.
Ultimately, this will be up to City Council. They're in charge of Caring for Denver's contract. Lorez Meinhold, who leads Caring for Denver, we should say, was a finalist for the 9 News Leader of the Year in 2024. That is a Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce award, which 9 News sponsors. 9 News journalists are not involved in the vetting or selection process. Jesse Ogus, the head of community affairs at 9 News, sits on the board of Caring for Denver. We should say Ogus does not work in 9 News' newsroom. Perhaps you have wondered how much it would cost to get inside access to some of the Democrats who run Colorado. I mean, not like the price is printed on a menu sheet, except a complaint out today says it was, when more than a dozen centrist Democrats from the legislature gathered at a retreat in Vail with lobbyists. Our Marshall Zellinger explains.
Video taken by a group tracking the whereabouts of state lawmakers captured the social part of a Democratic caucus meeting in Vail in October. The state's Ethics Commission is now investigating a complaint about this trip and whether a dark money group illegally bankrolled it for Democratic members of the Opportunity Caucus. A new complaint served today seeks records from that caucus and claims those records will show lobbyists were offered pay-to-play access to those Democratic lawmakers in Vail.
It's as if they held committee hearings at the Capitol, but stationed a ticket taker outside saying, I'm not going to let you in unless you slip me a $5. And by $5, I mean a $100,000 bill.
Scott Moss represents the progressive activist who made an open records request with the 2 co-chairs of the Opportunity Caucus, Democratic State Senator Lindsey Doherty and Democratic State Representative Sean Camacho. The request was for a number of records related to the Vail caucus event. Both Doherty and Camacho responded that they had no records responsive to the request. But the complaint has one example, a menu that shows different events where lobbyists could mingle with lawmakers for anywhere from $25,000 to $100,000. Moss says he has this record because it was leaked to him.
We're lucky we were leaked enough to show not only the records we would presume exist, like the agendas and educational materials, but also a shocking fundraising pitch.
Is this proof that there was pay to play? We reached out to 3 people associated with the Opportunity Caucus. No one would confirm it, but when asked if this menu was made up, no one denied it either.
I can't speak for the caucus, I can speak for myself.
Camacho would not talk about the complaint, but defended not providing any records.
I sought legal guidance from nonpartisan staff. I followed that guidance. I'm in full compliance.
For Next, I'm Marshall Zellinger.
Here's the deal on that. The nonpartisan attorneys that work with state legislators at the Capitol provided the guidance that Camacho and Doherty had no records responsive to the request. Reporters, we hear that a lot when we ask for public records. It does not mean that there are no records of this trip to Vail. It just means that the attorneys believe there is a legal way to keep you from seeing them. And that's why the complaint was served today. If months of construction on Colfax's bus rapid transit line has been a gut punch for businesses trying to stay open, the anatomical analogy for a similar project happening on the other side of the city would be a pain in the backside. Mark Salinger looks at plans for more construction pain with the hope of long-term transit gain.
Coffee shops are for conversations.
More positive stories from our community.
On East Colfax, business owners gathered this morning to talk about the orange cones on the street.
So we will be saying goodbye to construction dust and cones and fences.
As the bus rapid transit project outside shops like Good Bones makes progress, there's reflection about how the years-long project impacted the area.
The time to be surprised and to be angry is in the past.
Frank Locantori is the head of the Colfax Ave Business Improvement District. His street was the first in Denver to add a dedicated bus lane with stops down the middle of the road.
We've seen the normal churn of businesses, but we haven't seen businesses close specifically because of bus rapid transit.
Now there's a new conversation on what comes next across town.
We're hoping to do a study to figure out what makes sense in terms of bus rapid transit on the Spear-Leetsdale-Parker corridor.
Nora Kern and the Denver Regional Council of Governments put out a request for proposal to study how another bus rapid transit project could impact another part of the city, connecting downtown to I-225. If approved, it would go through Denver, Glendale, Aurora, and Arapahoe County.
I mean, it's a complicated corridor, and we really want to get those opinions to make sure we're recommending a plan that works for everybody.
It would aim to be constructed sometime between 2030 and 2039. They'd use lessons learned from how construction went on Colfax.
And so we've learned a lot about how to phase the project and how we can hopefully minimize impacts to everybody.
Frank already has feedback he wants to share.
And it changes month to month as the construction migrates up and down the street.
Everything from communication between business owners and residents to how to create a larger fund to help shops survive construction.
If that comes to pass, it's going to be too late for us, but it would be great for the next BRT project or any project.
Federal Boulevard already has received federal funding for a bus rapid transit project, much like Colfax did. Federal will see construction begin next year with the bus running by 2030. There's still the possibility this new Spear, Leetsdale, and Parker Road project doesn't happen. But right now, Kyle, it seems like the goal is to connect the entire city with different BRT systems.
Spear, Leetsdale, Parker. Maybe everybody could just stay home for a year.
It's
right?
a long road.
All right.
Yeah.
Mark Salinger, thank you. Denver Police Department's trying to catch more speeders and their wallets by training more civilians to run those photo radar vans. The city comes right out and says the speed traps are intended to slow down drivers and drive down the city's budget gap. Our Spencer Soysher shows you where to drive if you want to make a $40 donation.
When you need more money, sometimes you have to create a way to get it.
We will increase some of the use of our photo radar enforcement as a way to increase safety in terms of speed all around the city, will also have a modest impact on revenue.
So last September, when announcing his proposed city budget, Denver Mayor Mike Johnston recognized that the city could send out more photo radar enforcement with hopes of slowing down speeders and generating an additional $600K through those $40 tickets. They get up to 80 in school zones. A small dent for a city, $200 million in the hole. But how much more enforcement should people in Denver expect? We pulled the numbers. From 2023 through 2025, photo speed violations went down every year. In 2023, the city issued 129,899 photo radar tickets. In 2024, it gave out about 123,568. By 2025, the city gave out 106,743 tickets, about 17,000 fewer than the year before. If every one of those tickets was a non-school zone one, that's a $920,000 difference. Denver police told us yesterday that so far this year, they've given out 11,331 photo radar tickets. DPD says that pace is going to pick up as the year goes on, and more people are hired to run the speed vans. So where should you be looking? We found a list of where DPD is issuing the most photo radar tickets. I went to East High School more than a decade ago, and even then, I was convinced there was one of those photo radar vans out here on 17th every single day. And now I feel validated because Denver's #1 spot for photo radar enforcement in the city is along eastbound 17th between Fillmore and Jackson. If you're a country clubber at the Denver Country Club, you may not be surprised by the second most common spot, eastbound on 1st Avenue between Marion and Gaylord. And in honor of the Olympics, the bronze medalist for best place to make a non-tax deductible $40 to $80 donation to the city of Denver is 58th and Central Park Boulevard, right near what Kyle calls the Richard.
I do, yeah.
DPD says part of the reason the number of tickets went down every year since at least 2023 is because of staffing issues. They lost speed enforcement positions through attrition and then focused on staffing in other areas. The department says it's working to train its civilian workers to run the speed traps.
I get it, right? It's about volume, and the city's got a budget gap. I mean, at least the mayor comes out and says it, right? They don't hide it. Spencer, thank you. Democratic politician in Colorado with a history of bending the truth busted again. Elections officials vetted his campaign supporters and found almost none of them are legit.
Showing our students that there are many people out there that look just like them doing beautiful and incredible things.
Kids in Denver are getting moving and getting a history lesson and a lesson in culture as well. That's next. There's a rule of thumb for candidates trying to petition onto the ballot in Colorado. Always got to turn in a bunch more signatures than you think you're going to need because hundreds or even thousands of them could get tossed out in the verification process. I am telling you, I have never seen anything like what just happened to a Democrat who turned in more than 1,600 signatures to get on the ballot in Arapahoe County. Secretary of State's office says when they checked out the signatures, almost every single one was invalid. Perhaps you remember Eric Nelson, the former Aurora School Board member who unsuccessfully ran for a state house seat back in 2016. There was huge opposition from his own party when it came to light he was lying about his criminal history and that he'd padded his resume with a fake military history and fake degrees. Well, tried to give it another go this year and failed spectacularly. Colorado requires state house candidates to gather 1,000 signatures if they want to petition on. Nelson turned in what appeared to be a safe number, 1,600 plus. But according to the Secretary of State's office, only 29 were valid. 29. That's astonishing. I mean, so signatures could get tossed for a variety of reasons. It could be signatories that don't match active voter registrations or signatures from voters who are not registered Democrats for the primary or just folks who don't live in the district. But woof. Meteorologist Chris Bianchi, it has not snowed in Denver since the two of us were freezing our cans off at the AFC Championship game, yet we're getting an avalanche warning this morning?
Yeah, so Kyle, I know you're not a meteorologist, but I think you know that it's difficult to have an avalanche if it doesn't snow for a month. And so that's a little bizarre that we had this Bing alert. If you have the browser Bing, you might have gotten this morning in Denver County. This is real, by the way, courtesy of a Reddit user posted this, that there was an avalanche warning in Denver, Colorado this morning. Spoiler alert, there was no avalanche warning for us here in Denver. It looks like some sort of a misuse there from Bing. As I mentioned, it's a little bit challenging to have an avalanche in Denver, Colorado, period, but let alone when hasn't snowed in basically a month. There is, on a serious note, an avalanche warning for us in the mountains. This goes into tomorrow. Stay in bounds here, folks. But we do have a little snow on the way. This is courtesy of a system that's moving its way through California, Nevada, and Utah right now. This will reach us overnight and bring us some more snow in the mountains, especially the San Juans, the Sangre Cristos. By the way, Wolf Creek, 29 inches of snow in the last 72 hours, and we've seen in Aspen 36 inches of snow in the last week. So a pretty good snowstorm for us in the mountains and more snow to go. Denver, maybe a few flakes for us here in town, maybe for us here in Denver, but nothing meaningful for us in town tomorrow. It's just kind of cold tomorrow, cloudy, a few snow showers around just to give us a bit of a wintry vibe. But if you like the warm stuff that we've had, we're going to have that for the rest of the week with those temperatures back into the 40s for Saturday and Sunday, into the 60s next week. Final thing I'll leave you with, some good news. We are starting to make up some ground in the snowpack, 61% of where we should be, but we are now tied for last place in terms of snowpack, lowest snowpack since 2002, but we are making up ground in the high country.
Black history lessons are jumping off the page and onto the stage as kids connect to culture through dance. Hey, reminder, you can catch Next streaming each weeknight, 6 p.m., 9 News Plus, and Next is a podcast. It's like the show, but you can't see us. Students at a public school in Denver celebrated Black History Month today through movement and a visit from one of Colorado's most iconic cultural institutions. Our Byron Reed was there.
Expression takes many forms.
Can everyone say haunted?
Haunted! And for kindergartner Melly Williams, today's assembly is a demonstration of history.
I learned about the hip hop. And anybody can sing or dance.
Williams is a student at Joe Shoemaker School, where more than 450 students learned about Black history through dance with the Cleo Parker Robinson Dance Company.
I learned about history. I learned about ballet. I learned about South.
Showing our students that there are many people out there that look just like them doing beautiful and incredible things to inspire them and show a different part of history that's not always shown.
For organizer Annie Holyfield, the visit is part of a larger effort.
So that kids could start seeing themselves as storytellers and bring out the personal story from themselves and leveraging that through the arts.
The ensemble led their 45-minute interactive History Through Dance program, bringing dancing styles like West African, ballet, and hip-hop to life.
And seeing these different paths that you can take through expression that are rooted so deeply in their own history is part of our mission.
The school partners community artists with the DPS Black Student Success Cohort, a district-wide initiative focused on equity and culturally responsive education.
To really make sure we're doing our part to support kids that have often been historically overlooked getting what they deserve.
For Melly and her classmates, the day was about dancing.
The best part was the hip hop.
And taking their first steps to making a long-lasting impact.
We've got a lot of work to do, but it's been meaningful work for sure.
For Next, I'm Byron Reed.
Oh, Marilyn, we have found the sweetest child.
So cute.
Her little voice. Oh my goodness, it's the best. Hey, we're back with feedback next. Feedback from Jim, who's here to distract from our report on the ethics complaint against Colorado Democrats for their lobbyist retreat. Jim says, I don't hear you whining about the $400 million jet gift to Trump from Qatar and the $1 billion to renovate it. Well, Jim, I would say this. There are lots of types of flaccid logic, but whataboutism is perhaps the most flimsy. We cover Colorado politics here on this show, but when Trump got that jet, we did do a story looking at whether Colorado's ethics gifts rules would allow a politician here to accept the cheapest used car on Auto Trader in Wyoming. They could not. Very strict gift rules. See you next time.